On one side of late-night America, laughter still means something. On the other side, it means damage control. And this week, the spotlight landed right back where it always does, on Donald Trump Jr., the eldest son of the man who turned chaos into a brand, and on Jimmy Kimmel, the man who keeps turning that brand into punchlines. The story begins like a regular Tuesday night. Kimmel's monologue kicks off with his usual rhythm, jokes, clips, laughter, until he gets to that part, the one about Don Jr. in court again. There he is, walking through a storm of cameras, looking like someone who just realized the Wi-Fi doesn't reach the courtroom. Outside, the protesters chant in unison, "Crime family, crime family." And honestly, that's the most accurate chorus they could have picked. Because this family isn't just controversial, they've made a career out of being the world's loudest victims. Kimmel, standing there in his calm, composed tone, drops a line so smooth it lands like a grenade in a library. Don Jr. was back on the stand today, he says, smirking. He called his father an artist, the man who paints with other people's money. The audience bursts out laughing. The studio shakes. The internet clips it. Within hours, millions are replaying that moment. A single, sharp sentence that slices through weeks of courtroom spin. But outside the studio, the echo is deafening. Because somewhere in the digital wilderness, Don Jr. saw it. He didn't laugh, he didn't shrug. He sprinted straight to social media, typing like a raccoon who just found the pantry. And that's where the absurd rumor factory fired up. Suddenly, a headline appears. Don Jr. calls the cops on Jimmy Kimmel after he exposed Trump on live TV. You could almost hear the disbelief laughing back, because nothing screams rugged truth-teller like dialing 911 over a monologue. But this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a strategy. The same old Trump playbook. 1. Take a joke. 2. Pretend it's an attack. 3. Spin the attack into a conspiracy. 4. Sell a mug about it by morning. And so, the internet split in two. One half was laughing. The other was trying to find out if Don Jr. actually filed a police report over a punchline. Spoiler alert, he didn't. But that didn't stop the circus. Because, let's be real, this isn't about cops. It's about control. The Trumps can handle lawsuits, indictments, and bankruptcies, but what they can't handle is mockery. Humiliation is their kryptonite. And Kimmel? He's basically Lex Luthor with a studio audience. Meanwhile, Kimmel didn't even blink. He's seen this movie before. The fake outrage, the hashtags, the defenders calling him unpatriotic, it's all reruns. But what makes this chapter different is the timing. Kimmel had just come off his own suspension fiasco. A week of silence, of people questioning whether he'd gone too far. When he came back, he didn't come back angrier, he came back sharper. You could hear it in his cadence. Fewer drum rolls, more receipts. He didn't need to yell, he just laid out the facts and let them roast themselves. Don Jr. says his dad is the father of hotel gems. Kimmel reads from the transcript, pausing for effect. The same guy who's never stepped inside one. The audience explodes again. That's what makes Kimmel dangerous to people like Don Jr. He doesn't attack, he documents. He doesn't need a scandal, he just quotes them. And every time he does, Don Jr. takes the bait, like a man allergic to silence. Within hours, his feed is filled with clips, captions about Hollywood elites, and his usual monologue about freedom that sounds more like a late-night infomercial for chaos. The machine spins up. Someone adds breaking to a thumbnail. Someone else slaps on a police siren. And suddenly, a rumor becomes a headline. But here's the truth Kimmel never even had to say out loud. If Don Jr. actually called the cops, we'd seen the paperwork by now. There'd be a precinct, a date, a report number, a press conference, maybe even a selfie in front of the station. But there's nothing, just noise. Because that's all it ever is, noise. And that's the brilliance of Kimmel's approach. He doesn't feed it, he just lets it collapse under its own weight. He yawns while the circus screams. He shrugs while they rage. And somehow, that shrug hurts more than any insult could. Because deep down, Don Jr. knows what the rest of us already figured out. You can't win a fight against a comedian who's having more fun than you are. If you're watching this and you're on Kimmel's side of the story, make sure to hit subscribe, because we're just getting started. The next morning, the circus rolls right back into town, the courthouse. Don Jr. walks in, all smiles and swagger, trying to look unbothered. But the cameras don't lie, he's nervous. And the chants outside, louder than yesterday. Crime family, crime family. Inside, he's testifying in the $250 million fraud trial that's been shadowing his father's empire like a ghost that won't leave. He tries to keep the act going, the confident businessman, the loyal son, the victim of a witch hunt, but the cracks are showing. On the stand, Don Jr. does what he always does best, deflects. "I'm not an accountant," he says, shrugging. "I'm a business guy. I rely on professionals. I pay them millions. They're supposed to know more than me." And that right there is the defense. The accountants did it. The oldest song in the Trump family playlist. If that logic worked, every failed CEO in America could just blame their calculator. By that reasoning, patients could sue doctors for following prescriptions, and pilots could land planes upside down and just say, "Hey, I relied on the instruments." The courtroom chuckles, even the judge almost smirks, but Don Jr. stays locked in his script. Kimmel, of course, sees all of this, and like clockwork, he turns it into gold that night. He opens the monologue with that same half grin that says, "You're not gonna believe this one." Don Jr. said his dad is the father of hotel gems, Kimmel repeats. That's like saying Dracula invented the juice bar. The crowd howls. Kimmel pauses just long enough to let the laughter breathe. He's in control, calm, surgical, and absolutely merciless. And this time, he doesn't need to exaggerate a thing. He just reads Don Jr.'s own words back to him, like a mirror. No screaming, no outrage, just reflection. And reflection is fatal when you live off delusion. Then he drops the follow-up. "The guy who's never set foot in a gym thinks he's the godfather of hotel treadmills. That's like Eric calling himself the CEO of intelligence." The laughter hits like thunder. But what Kimmel's doing isn't just roasting, it's reporting with rhythm. Because underneath every punchline is a record of who said what and when. It's not about jokes anymore, it's about truth disguised as comedy. Meanwhile, on the internet, the rumor about Don Jr. calling the cops on Kimmel is spreading like wildfire. Meme pages, reaction channels, low-budget political blogs, all milking the fake headline. Trump Jr. files police report against Kimmel. Late-night host under investigation for defamation. Fake screenshots, fake quotes, fake everything. But that's how this machine works. It doesn't need proof, it just needs outrage. And Don Jr., he can't resist amplifying it. He starts posting about Hollywood elites, cancel culture, and the war on conservatives. He plays the victim like it's his full-time job, which at this point it kind of is. While all that's happening, Kimmel's monologue keeps slicing through the noise. He points out the hypocrisy with a surgeon's calm. "You can't call yourself the victim of media trials," he says, "while your lawyers are doing interviews on every network known to man. Pick a struggle." He rolls a clip of Don Jr.'s lawyer saying, "The kids shouldn't even be in this case. They've done nothing wrong." Kimmel leans in and replies, "Right, they're just kids. 40-something-year-old kids who still think nepotism is a family tradition." The laughter is almost cruel. Almost. That's the difference between Kimmel and his targets. He doesn't need to invent villains. He just gives them a stage and lets them audition. Then, as he shifts into the next segment, he starts connecting dots. Trump's old pattern resurfaces. Grievance, denial, merch. Every scandal turns into a sales pitch. Every indictment becomes a t-shirt. And Don Jr., he's the loudest salesman in the bunch. He knows how to turn outrage into clicks, clicks into cash, and humiliation into content. But here's the tragic irony. The louder he yells, the smaller he looks. Because while he's trying to prove he's the heir to an empire, Kimmel's turning him into a recurring character in America's longest-running sitcom. The same man who once bragged about carrying his father's legacy is now trending under the hashtag Cop Collar Jr. And that's the real sting, not the joke itself, but the afterlife of it. Because every meme, every clip, every retweet is a reminder that mockery travels faster than propaganda. Back in court, Don Jr. tries to keep a straight face. He's testifying, yes, but he's also auditioning for sympathy, for validation, for the next Fox interview. But the more he talks, the clearer it gets. The Trumps have one story and 1,000 excuses. We're victims. We are persecuted. We're unfairly targeted. Kimmel's response? A single shrug that says, "Sure, buddy." And that's what drives Don Jr. wild. The fact that Jimmy Kimmel doesn't scream back. He doesn't play their game. He's too busy winning it. The next time Don Jr. tries to post another video rant about being silenced, Kimmel just plays a clip and lets the contradiction speak for itself. A man who uploads daily rants to millions claiming he's being censored. That's not comedy, that's confession. And while Don Jr. spends his nights doom scrolling, Kimmel spends his writing new material. Because as long as the Trump show keeps airing, Kimmel's got free episodes. By midweek, the courtroom isn't the only place on fire, the internet is too. Every outlet, every blog, every reaction channel is buzzing about one headline. Don Jr. calls the cops on Kimmel. And like every great lie, it's just believable enough to travel. Kimmel, of course, doesn't even flinch. He knows the pattern by heart. Step 1, mock them. Step 2, they overreact. Step 3, let them set themselves on fire while you narrate the smoke. So when Thursday night's show starts, he's grinning like a man who's already read tomorrow's headlines. Apparently, Don Jr. called the police on me, he says. The audience laughs before he even finishes. If that's true, I hope he used his dad's phone, the one with all the classified documents taped to it. The laughter rolls through the studio like a wave. Because here's the thing, Kimmel isn't just roasting anymore. He's documenting absurdity in real time. He knows every punchline doubles as a receipt. He cuts to a clip of Don Jr. in his truck, ring light glaring off his eyes, ranting into the camera. The words don't even matter. It's the performance that tells the story. The shaky voice, the forced anger, the "they're coming for me" theatrics. Kimmel tilts his head, squints, and says, "Someone get this man a podcast or at least a nap." The crowd erupts. But behind the laughs, there's something deeper: fatigue. The audience isn't laughing at politics anymore. They're laughing at the repetition. The same drama, the same self-pity, the same witch hunt speech every week like clockwork. And Kimmel calls it out. These people are addicted to persecution. They can't go one day without pretending to be hunted. It's not a political movement anymore. It's a therapy group with merch. That line lands like a punch, because that's exactly what it is. The Trump family has turned victimhood into a subscription service. Every insult becomes a t-shirt. Every investigation becomes a fundraising email. Meanwhile, back in New York, Don Jr.'s testimony is tanking. Even sympathetic reporters admit it. The jokes, the rehearsed sound bites, the excuses, it's all falling flat. And yet, he can't stop talking. He's smiling through it all, pretending to be calm, but every question chips away at the image. He keeps saying he trusted the accountants, that he had no knowledge of valuations, that he's just a business guy. But every time he says that, the prosecutors pull out another document with his name on it. Another signature, another approval, another contradiction. It's brutal. And as the trial unfolds, Kimmel keeps narrating it like a highlight reel from the world's most awkward reality show. He plays footage of Don Jr. leaving court, squinting under the flashlights. There he is, Kimmel says, America's most confident man, until someone asks for numbers. The laughter hits, but then Kimmel pivots, calm as ever. This isn't about politics anymore, he says. It's about accountability. You can't build a life on smoke and mirrors and then act shocked when someone opens a window. That's the moment when the crowd quiets. Because that's the trick Kimmel's mastered. The switch from comedy to clarity. He makes you laugh, then makes you think. Meanwhile, Don Jr. can't take it. He's ranting online again, posting screenshots of memes that mock him, promising revenge, calling Kimmel unhinged. But the problem is, the more he yells, the more he proves Kimmel's point. The rumor that he called the cops, still fake, but the panic it caused, very real. Trump himself gets wind of it and decides to chime in, because of course he does. He goes on Truth Social and posts another all-caps manifesto about fake news, radical comedians, and political persecution. It reads like a 2 a.m. text from a man arguing with his own TV. Kimmel plays that too. Trump called me a failed host who ruined the Oscars, he says, and yet, somehow, I'm still the one with the job. Boom, mic drop. The crowd loses it. But Kimmel doesn't stop there. He's evolved past one-liners. He's narrating a bigger pattern, the show within the show. He explains how every scandal follows the same choreography. A Trump gets exposed, pretends to be attacked, then cries witch hunt. Then another one posts a video saying the media is evil, all while doing media interviews. They crave victimhood, Kimmel says, leaning forward, because being a victim pays better than being responsible. And that's when the audience gets quiet again, because he's not wrong. That's the secret Don Jr. can't admit. The Trump empire isn't built on business, it's built on grievance. It's a pyramid scheme of outrage, and the punchline is the only part that's real. As Kimmel closes that night, he gives the audience a knowing grin. He doesn't need to shout, he doesn't need to name-call, he just lets the evidence speak. And in the background, Don Jr.'s echo chamber keeps spinning. Rage videos, fake reports, denial posts, all feeding into the same cycle. But this time, it's different. This time, the laughter hits deeper. Because everyone watching knows it's not just funny anymore, it's pathetic. By Friday morning, the Trump PR machine has gone from spinning to spiraling. Don Jr. is on social media acting like a man wronged by destiny. Eric is posting quotes about loyalty like he's auditioning for a Shakespeare play. And Trump himself has entered all-caps mode. On Truth Social, the rants start pouring out like a broken hydrant. Fake news. Witch hunt. Kimmel is a loser who ruined the Oscars. Leave my children alone. You know it's serious when Trump starts defending his kids. It happens about once every election cycle. He writes, "There's no victim except me. Leave my children alone. You are a disgrace to the legal profession." Kimmel plays that on screen, squinting like a teacher reading an essay written 5 minutes before class. Then he looks up, deadpan. Leave my children alone? He's been doing that their whole lives. The audience howls. The joke lands because it's true, and everyone knows it. But then Trump doubles down, because of course he does. He starts dragging Hillary Clinton into the conversation, again. Why isn't the fake news media looking into Hillary Clinton spying on the President of the United States? A crime so grave that it once called for the death penalty. Kimmel sighs. Yes, the death penalty for Hillary. It's 2025, and he's still fighting ghosts from 2016. At this point, Hillary should be charging him rent for living in his head. The laughter roars through the studio again. Because here's the thing, the Trump universe runs on reruns. Every outrage is recycled. Every scandal is repackaged. And no matter how absurd it gets, the fan base eats it up, as long as it comes with a slogan. Kimmel points that out too. He plays a quick montage. Don Jr. selling mugs, Trump selling NFT cards, Eric promoting his family memoir. Then he cuts back to himself and says, "It's not a political movement, it's a traveling gift shop with a persecution complex." And that's exactly what it is. Meanwhile, in real life, the court proceedings keep going. Don Jr. finishes his testimony. Eric is next. Ivanka's been dismissed. Trump, nowhere near the courthouse. He's too busy playing DJ at Mar-a-Lago's Halloween party. And that's when Kimmel really sharpens the knife. He plays photos from the event, the crowd of donors, the sequins, the fake smiles. Trump was too busy hosting a costume party to support his sons in court, Kimmel says. If I were them, I'd dress as accountability. It's the one thing he's terrified of. The audience roars again, because at this point, it's not even political anymore. It's performance art. Every Trump reaction has become a meme in motion. Kimmel just frames it perfectly. He calls the whole saga what it really is: a family business powered by three things: grievance, merch, and the word unfair in 50 fonts. He's not wrong. The rumor that Don Jr. called the cops on Kimmel? Still fake, of course. But it's not about facts. It's about narrative control. They needed that lie to exist because it turns Kimmel from a comedian into a villain. It keeps the base angry. It keeps the donations flowing. And it keeps the headlines loud enough to drown out the silence of accountability. Kimmel breaks it down calmly. This is the trick. You punch down and call it honesty. You cash in and call it sacrifice. You lose and call it theft. And when someone laughs at you, you call the cops. That line hits different, because that's the truth under all the noise. The Trump operation can handle humiliation, but not laughter. Laughter is fatal to propaganda. It punctures the illusion of strength. And Kimmel knows it. He doesn't yell back. He doesn't fight dirty. He just keeps doing what Trump can't stand, staying funny and factual. Then he gives one of those perfect Kimmel-style outros. You know, I'd send Trump a mug with my quote from the Oscars just so he never forgets it. Maybe a t-shirt, a hat, a wine goblet for Melania if she ever sees him again. At least then they'll finally own something honest. The crowd goes wild, because the punchline isn't cruel, it's surgical. It cuts right through the illusion. What Kimmel exposed this week wasn't just Trump family hypocrisy, it was their formula. They can't survive with outrage. They can't function with enemies. And when a comedian refuses to play along, they collapse. The fake cop call story was never about Kimmel. It was about preserving the myth that they're victims, that every joke is an attack, that every critic is part of a plot. Because victimhood is the last currency they have left. As Kimmel wraps the show, he delivers one final truth. Spectacle feeds on fear. Laughter starves it. That's why they hate it. Then he smiles. The audience stands. And across the country, the people who've been drowning in outrage finally exhale. By the weekend, the story had gone everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, every corner of the internet was buzzing with one question. Did Don Jr. really call the cops on Jimmy Kimmel? And even though the answer was a clear no, that didn't stop the meme factory from printing faster than a Trump NFT drop. Photoshopped police reports, fake mugshots, doctored 911 transcripts. It was chaos dressed as comedy, irony feeding on irony. But under the laughter, something else was happening, a shift. People weren't laughing at the rumor anymore. They were laughing through it, seeing how fragile the Trump family's image had become. Because at this point, every Trump tantrum feels like a rerun. Same plot, same script. The only difference is who they're blaming this week. And Kimmel? He doesn't even need to respond anymore. He's won without lifting a finger. Monday night comes around, and instead of firing back, he just plays a short montage. Trump ranting in all caps, Don Jr. fuming on video, Eric trying to look serious next to a stack of notes he clearly didn't write. Then Kimmel says, "You ever notice how every time they say witch hunt, it's right after they get caught doing something?" The crowd cracks up, not because it's funny, but because it's true. Kimmel's tone isn't angry, it's observational, weary, like someone who's seen the circus too many times but can't look away. He knows that's what gives him power. He's not in the arena throwing punches. He's up in the booth calling the play-by-play. And that's what destroys the Trump strategy, mockery without malice. Because you can argue with hate, you can't argue with laughter. As the week goes on, the media starts catching up to the joke. Fact-checkers confirm there was no police report, no 911 call, no legal complaint. The entire rumor was a digital mirage, just another episode in the never-ending series called Trump versus Reality. But the damage is done, not to Kimmel, but to Don Jr. He's trending for all the wrong reasons again. Hashtag Cop Caller Jr. is everywhere. His video rants are being remixed into memes, and the internet has moved on from outrage to amusement. That's the part they never understand. The internet doesn't cancel, it clowns. Once the joke sticks, there's no recovery. Even Trump, the master of media chaos, looks rattled. He posts again, accusing Kimmel of unpatriotic behavior, whatever that means. He even drags out his old Oscars grudge, the one that's haunted him for years. Kimmel is the worst host in history, Trump writes. He's jealous, unfunny, and washed up. Kimmel reads that on air, pretending to look touched. Washed up? Maybe, but at least I didn't wash up at Mar-a-Lago. The audience loses it, because at this point, Trump isn't fighting a late-night host, he's fighting gravity. He's trying to convince the world that he's still untouchable, even as his empire crumbles, his lawyers bail, and his own sons become punchlines. That's not leadership, that's desperation with a press release. Kimmel sums it up in one line that stops the laughter cold. When a family spends more time defending their brand than their country, the brand becomes the only thing left. That's the truth nobody on their side wants to face. Because deep down, every Trump appearance, every rally, every rant, every meltdown is about preserving the illusion of success, the illusion of control, the illusion that they're victims, not architects of their own downfall. And Kimmel's sin? He tells the truth with a smirk. He laughs, and that laughter unravels the whole act. He doesn't need to shout or argue or convince. He just says what everyone's been thinking and lets the silence do the rest. That's why the fake police call story hurt so much, not because it fooled anyone, but because it exposed how desperate the Trumps are to stay relevant in a world that's stopped taking them seriously. It's like watching the end of a reality show that ran too long. The characters haven't changed, the audience just got smarter. And now even their scandals sound scripted. Every crisis feels copy-pasted. Every defense sounds like déjà vu. Meanwhile, Kimmel's monologue keeps evolving. Less outrage, more precision. He's not just mocking Trump anymore. He's dissecting the anatomy of absurdity. He explains it like a teacher. Spectacle needs fear to survive. Take away fear, replace it with laughter, and the spectacle dies. That's the final blow. Because when the noise fades, all that's left is truth. And the truth is simple. No one called the cops. No one was threatened. No one was silenced. What really happened was worse. A joke landed too close to reality, and the people it hit couldn't stand the reflection. The audience laughs one last time, not out of mockery, but relief. Relief that someone is still willing to turn chaos into clarity. As the credits roll, Kimmel gives his final line of the week. If you ever feel overwhelmed by the noise, remember, the louder they get, the closer you are to the truth. And with that, the studio fades to applause. The internet calms for a moment, and the joke that started as a rumor ends as a reminder. Laughter is the one thing power can't control. If you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because around here, we don't just watch the headlines, we laugh them back to size.